system is used to explain the basic shapes that connect the fretboard. But what a lot of guitarists don't realize is that those same shapes can be pieced together to create really colorful modern sounds. In today's video, we're going to look at how using CAGED shapes can help us create angular lines in modern chord progressions. So we're going to start with this progression in the key of D. It's playing on the 10th fret, E form, and then we're going to connect the 5 in the C form and the 4 in the C form. Now, that's just the foundation. I'm actually going to create arpeggios that will connect all these shapes through melody. So if I have the first 3 notes, that's just taking a slight adjustment from this shape to add a whole step above the octave to give us this. Now, quickly, I am assuming that you guys understand chord tones for this lesson. If not, I will link some of the videos that I have made that go into that subject. But for today, this is more of a creative type of approach to using shapes that you may have already used before. So, root 5th octave now becomes root 5th 2. And that is root 5th 2 3. So again, that compares in this way. Root 5th root 3rd is now root 5th 2 3rd. And that's an add 9 type of arpeggio. I'm palm muting these notes to shape it like that. I slide down to the first note of the 5 chord, which is actually going to be the 5th of that chord. Right? And then I add some passing tones around the shape on the 3rd of that 5 chord. And now we shift down to the 4 right there, but instead of shifting my hand, I'm going to refinger it like this. And then repeat. And the second time I play that same pass, I go and I jump to the octave down to the 3rd of the 4. Again, that's octave of the 5 chord, 3rd of the 4. All right? And then I slide from the 3rd of the 1 to the 5th of the 5. And by taking this approach, these 3 chords, even though they're just 1, 4, and 5, the bass is just holding D. And that's how we're getting a major 7, 9 sound out of all this. So another thing you can do is you can just play the root and maybe play its arpeggio down to the 4. That's the 4 as well as an A shape if you want to kind of run with this idea a little bit further. Lots of major pentatonic kind of sus sounds. So we're going to move to B flat next, which is part of the key of F. So with F being 1, B flat being 4, and C being the 5, we're going to use the C shape for the 1, the E shape for the 4, and the G shape for the 5. Same idea as before, but now we're going to switch from this 1 chord to the 5, and that's using that G shape, Hendrix kind of double stop, which has the 5th and the 2 held together to hammer on to the 3rd. In that moment, I jumped up to the major 7, and the way I'm seeing that off of the 4 chord is I'm seeing that E form power chord bar shape and playing it an octave higher, which takes us into the D shape, right? And so with that, I can take that octave down a half step to get a major 7 sound. And so that's that melody note I decided to reach for. It was a nice contrast. When I repeat, that moment, I move up to the 5 in the key of F. Think of that E major bar chord shape, right? Do the same, add 9. But now I'm pretty much just not thinking chords over chords. I'm just thinking this is the C, the 5, and I see the sus2 shape that hammers on to the 3rd. 3 down to 2, just like that. And major pentatonic is what I'm basing that melody on. Right? And then I come back to the 1. And I forgot, I have a little ending there. So the ending is taking the same idea as the major 7 we played with the 4 chord in the key of F. Cool sound, by the way, right? And I come down the 5 in the key of D, down to the 4, 1. 1. There's like a lot of fancy names for what we're doing. Parallel minor, modal interchange. But I'm trying to keep this more about just how thinking one key and then another key and then playing the basic chords like 1, 4, and 5, like we just did in the key of D and in the key of F, we can really create some cool sounds. But you could relate, say now, the first chord D major to B flat. If we want to think about it like in the key of D, this would be the flat 6, because we have 1, 7, 6, flat 6, like that, right? And we could think of the C in the key of D as the flat 7. And so that's a much more simple way to think about out chords. I'd encourage that, actually. It'll really help you map and take note of sounds you like if you kind of relate things first to one major key and just see those little alterations that are just a half step below the normal chords.